I'll show you how a mechanical clock is powered. The power from a mechanical clock comes from something like this, which is called a barrel, or inside of this is a mainspring. On the edge of this barrel is a gear. In the center of the clock is called the center wheel, and that attaches right to the barrel or the mainspring. Next in line is called the second wheel. Then down here we have the third wheel. Then we have what's called the escapement. The power of the clock goes from the mainspring to the first, or what's called the center wheel, to the second wheel, to the third wheel, and then through the escapement. Before I take everything apart, I'll show you what's called the pallet fork. If I move the second wheel, you can see that the pallet fork at the end moves back and forth. The end of this pallet fork moves back and forth and releases the energy of the clock. When I move the train of wheels in this direction, you can see that the pallet fork moves back and forth. If I push in the other direction, everything locks. The ability to lock in one direction holds all the tension of the mainspring in this direction. The pallet forks are held in by a pallet fork bridge with this one screw, and we'll remove it. These screws are very small. Once we remove this bridge, we'll be able to pull out the pallet forks, and then the wheels will be able to spin in either direction. Here's a look at the pallet forks. Here's a close-up look of those pallet forks. With the pallet forks removed, the train of wheels will move in either direction extremely smooth. The very last wheel is the escapement, and that works with the pallet forks. To get a closer look at the train of wheels, we'll need to remove these two screws and remove this bridge here. With a very sharp screwdriver, we can remove these screws. To remove the bridge, there's two little slots here that you can get a screwdriver into and slowly and carefully lift the bridge. With the bridge removed, you can clearly see the escapement. You can see the third wheel, the second wheel, then right in the center will be the center wheel. We can place the center wheel right in the center of the watch. This third wheel right here is where the second hand can be attached to. Here's the gears all in place. We've got the center wheel, second wheel, third wheel, and the escape. Now we can place the bridge on. It takes a lot of dexterity to get all these wheels to line up. You can touch the gears and all of them spin. You know you're getting close. With everything lined up, we can start to take the screws down, but don't lock them in tight. Just the tension of these screws can break off the little ends of these gears. When everything fits correctly, just the very slightest touch, and you'll see all the gears move, and the escapement is at the end. Only then, when you know everything moves, you can snug these up a little bit. Everything on a watch is done in steps. First, you get the wheel or the wheel train working perfectly. Then you put in the pallet fork. Then you apply the power with the mainspring. Now that we know the machine is moving properly, we'll put the pallet forks in. We'll know we have the pallet forks in properly when we can spin it in one direction but not the other. To keep the pallet forks in place, we'll put the bridge in. It's like a little fishtail that moves back and forth, and you just want to make sure that you don't apply too much pressure and break anything. You want to see it all move properly. If I apply tension on the center wheel and then move the pallet fork back and forth, I can see the escapement moving in one direction. I can lightly screw down the pallet fork bridge. If I move this center wheel in one direction, I can get the pallet forks to vibrate. If I go back in the other direction, it's locked. Instead of pushing on the center wheel with my finger, we'll let the mainspring do that. We'll engage the mainspring. We'll place the barrel bridge on. With the mainspring bridge on, I'll pull on that gear and just check the pallet forks, and you can see they're vibrating just quite nicely. We'll apply the gears that'll allow the mainspring to be able to be held in one direction. Now when we move this gear, it winds up the mainspring. This is the balance wheel, which is like a pendulum that's going to hit the pallet forks back and forth to keep the watch moving. We'll need to get everything all lined up. We'll give the balance wheel a little bit of air, and you can see it tick. Now that everything's clean, we can go ahead and oil everything up and put everything back together.